So on behalf of the Conservative opposition, I'd like to rise to second this motion and thank the leader for his comments, and indeed comments of my colleagues. I know how hard he has worked, so I respect that too. The bravery of the police, the firefighters, the paramedics, many of whose stories I've heard myself, are an inspiration and the best of British behaviour. So on behalf of all of us, I'd like to thank all of them. I'd also like to express my sadness at the death of Richard Mannington Bowes and for all the residents and businesses affected by this atrocity. The most badly damaged shops and flats on Ealing Green are owned by a charity, Pathways Trust, a charity dating back to Victorian times, of which I'm a trustee. In the last week, I've spoken to many of those, in fact most of those business people and residents, and know that the trust is working hard to support them. The sad fact is that the hooligans damage properties which generate several £100,000 a year from rents and income, and which the charity then grants to deserving groups across our community. The Pathways Trust is almost uniquely placed to help break this cycle of dependency and dispossession, and we will ensure that it continues. But there's no simple answer to the cause of the troubles last week here in Ealing and across the country. I'd like to just quote something from the Bishop of London, Richard Charters, when I think he spoke for many of us when he said, "It's obviously vital not to stigmatise a whole generation. There are huge numbers of hopeful and high-achieving young people in London, but we do have a problem with a minority. One of the most appalling aspects of what has happened is the utter disregard for life and livelihood shown by a minority who went on the rampage. They seem to lack the restraint and the moral compass which comes from clear teaching about right and wrong, communicated through nourishing relationships. Clearly, there is a renewed need for restraint and a greater moral compass in our society." These words come to mind: conscience, responsibility, service, discipline, family, faith, hope, charity. Mr. Mayor, a positive example has to be set by all leaders across our society. Let's start with ourselves as leaders in the political arena. Let's make sure that we're responsible and accountable for the leadership we offer, listening and offering support, advice and encouragement, and delivering. Many came to clear up with their brooms and reclaimed our streets. Many have gone out of their way to patronise businesses in the troubled areas. Many have written positively on social network sites. I've been hugely heartened by the public spirit and demonstration of collective responsibility shown by so many. I was deeply moved by the prayer vigil organised by the Reverend Sally Hitchener, who we heard from this evening, and the Reverend Chris Fox of St Paul's Church, which is where I go. There were over 200 people there, a huge number when you compare that with a kind of similar number to those who rioted. And of course, I'd like to thank Chief Superintendent Rao for offering so many answers today, and he can be assured that the police have our support. However, a national debate is now underway about our policing, and clearly there are divergent views. When the police go in too hard, the Civil Liberties Lobby complains. When they're too soft, everyone else complains. But I strongly assert that our policing should be robust and firm and fair. Our police need the support of the communities that they police and must do so with our consent and must earn that consent. All citizens must take responsibility for their own actions and for their children. There are clear lines of behaviour that cannot be crossed. There is right and there is wrong. Those who flout the law should receive the full force of the law. No ifs, no buts, no excuses. So, Mr. Mayor, let me conclude by saying nothing can excuse the perpetrators of last week's atrocious crimes. No ifs, no buts, no excuses. The perpetrators should be brought to swift justice. The public need to support the police in doing this. Finally, I hope we all strive to serve with faith, hope and charity. So I urge the Council to support this motion.
Yeah.